Good evening, Adisha. Thank you for having me on tonight. So, all of what we watched is basically a culmination of a petition that was first submitted by Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan on the 5th of March, which was thrown out by the Senate after it described it as dead on arrival. You would recall that the chairman of the Ethics Committee had mentioned that because Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan had signed the petition herself, the petition was inadmissible, in the Senate and to the committee. Subsequently, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan on the 6th of March had submitted another petition, this time filed by one of her constituents, where she alleged gross misconduct, abuse of power, and also sexual harassment claims, against the president of the Senate. When that happened, the Senate President referred the petition to the Committee on Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petitions, which we saw start earlier today, to begin work on the petitions, investigations, if you may. So when they commenced the hearing, they had invited the petitioners to go under oath, but they had expressed concern that the chairman of the committee, him chairing the committee, sort of gives them doubts as to whether they would be granted fair hearing or not. And this simply was because the chairman prior to today had granted an interview to one of the flagship television stations where he had explicitly described the petition submitted by Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan as dead on arrival. Now, because of this, they claimed that they're not sure whether they will be heard fairly. In spite of efforts for them to take this oath, they remained persistent that they weren't going to do so. Interestingly, Suberu Yakubu, who was actually the petitioner who signed the petition that was submitted by Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, subsequently took the oath, but then insisted that he wasn't going to say anything simply because his primary witness, in this case, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, was not present in the hearing, and as such, he would not be able to present his case if that happens. However, between the back and forth, we're still unclear, particularly as to what was said by either Senator Nwebonyi or the former Minister of Education. But we heard name callings, we heard shut up, we heard you're a scoundrel, and we heard other issues that then broke out to be what we can see all across the media space and even the social media to be an altercation between the senator and the former Minister of Education.
Sagir, if you will indulge us, oblige us, can you tell us who said what, if you know?
Unfortunately, Alicia, I didn't get the question. If you would repeat it
My
again.
question is, who said what and at what time? What did you hear each of these two people say? Okay,
so initially I heard the former Minister of Education say to the senator, it was low, but then I heard shut up. And I heard her say, you're a scoundrel. And
what did he say before she said shut up? She obviously was responding to something. Do we know? Because that account is not anywhere on the internet right now. As to what Senator Nwebonyi said that made the former Minister of Education to shut him up.
Aditya, if you can hear me, initially the main argument was whether the petitioners were willing to take the oath before they commenced with their testimony or not. Now, the former Minister of Education had insisted that she wasn't going to go under oath because of the concerns that she had. Now, I'm not sure whether Senator Nwebonyi was speaking explicitly to her or he was addressing the chairman of the committee. However, like I said, we're paying attention to all of what was going on, but then I heard shut up and I heard you're a scoundrel. I'm not certain what Senator Nwebonyi had said to provoke that response from her, but I believe that was the beginning of the altercation that we have now seen has gone viral.
Sagir, just hold that thought. I'd like to quickly bring in Dr. Abiola Akiode, counsel to the petitioner, who was also at the Senate hearing. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. You were right next to the former Minister of Education, Obi Ezekwesili, and you saw what happened. by your own account, what really transpired there?
Well, it was obvious that the Senate members present were actually not ready to go on with the matter. And then they were just trying to provoke us and also to shut us down. There were attempts by myself as the counsel, the petitioner, Dr. Ezekwesili, to speak. At a point in time, we even agreed to speak. She even agreed to take the oath and then come in as a witness, which was what they said, that's the rule. What they said the rule was about. But they were not going to allow us. They wanted to subject us to a culture of silence. So it was, while that was going on, that the senator from Nwebonyi State had come up with some tantrums, was just screaming, shouting, and we thought that the Senate should have cautioned him at that point in time. And that was when the crisis started between him and Dr. Obi.
Can you describe to us the sort of tantrum that he was throwing at the time? Because we see it in the video. We see him shoving away another woman who was trying to keep him calm, and he just kept going on. In the initial stages, we could see that Dr. Ezekwesili was calm, but then, of course, how long can you stay calm with somebody else just yelling at you like that, and then she went off also? You could tell us about that.
One of the things he said, which, of course, will provoke anyone, was when he started talking about, he first said he was there when the Senate President and Senator Natasha met in Akwa Ibom. He was actually the one who would come and give, is a witness, to the respondent, and that all these women, they are birds of the same feather and all of that. So it started with that kind of thing. And it was at that point that Dr. Obi said, shut up. Because the senators were also trying to tell him to calm down, and allow the proceeding to go on, that it was not possible for him as a respondent, to bring his, to respond to the issues that have not been asked, because we had not clarified from the petitioner, whether the petitioner was ready to go on or not. So there was absolutely nothing for him to respond to.
Right.
So, but he was screaming there. So that was when the issue of shut up came up, because he started it, by just talking, throwing tantrums, telling us that you are birds of the same feather. Look at you, 70-year-old woman, coming here, to talk on behalf of, so he had a lot of things he was saying. Right. He had a lot of things he was saying. So she was just telling him, shut up. One, because we were not even called, to speak. So that was what happened there.
Right. So why was it necessary for you to ask Senator Imaseun to step down as chairman of the Senate Committee on Ethics?
All right. And I think that's actually the issue. Now, when we got there, we explained to them that there were two conditions that would make us to continue that proceeding, and that it was important for the committee to make a ruling on those issues. One was that the committee, as set up today, is biased. We have had some members of the committee who had expressed their opinion on the issue. The rule of fair hearing allows you not to be a judge in your own case. So we addressed that as a fundamental issue, and they had asked us to prove it. And we brought one of the newspaper reports, which showed that Senator Imaseun, on the 5th of March, had called a press briefing where he said Senator Natasha's petition is dead on arrival. So we had brought that before them. And we had asked them to set up a special committee that is unbiased, that would be able to address this issue. This issue is a national issue. It's an international issue. It's an issue that borders on the integrity. So it's a serious issue. So that was one of the points we had raised. The second point was that even if Senator Natasha is bringing this petition through a petitioner, it's still important, because one of the paragraphs in the petition says that Senator Natasha has the video and documentary evidence that she can use to prove the case. And the petitioner had asked in that affidavit that the committee should allow Senator Natasha to come before the committee to present our evidence. And that was put before them. So we asked them to make a ruling on those two issues. Because if they don't, it will not be fair, on the petitioner to come and argue as a third party when he is not the principal witness in that matter. To allow our principal witness, Senator Natasha, to come to the House to defend those issues with the evidence that she has. And so that was where we had the crisis with them. They refused to agree on that, and they decided to go ahead and rule the House the way the Senate, the way they wanted it to go, the committee, the way they wanted it to go. We had a lot of interesting discussions there. They were telling us to off the mic. They were telling us we don't know the rules and all of that. But I would have expected that a committee of that nature, dealing with ethics and privileges, when you want to start a hearing of that nature, you should have your ground rules. You should let the people that are coming before you know these are the rules here, this is what we do, this is what we don't do. We just got there and said, you need to take an oath, this is the rule here and all of that. And we said, no, guys, calm down. Let's understand what your rules are all about so that we then understand how to deal with this. So we had that kind of issues at the beginning. But at a point in time, we said, okay, we're ready to take the oath, but we need you to respond to these two issues, which they dodged and they never responded to until the end of the meeting. Now, but, to then go back to what then happened, because it was obvious that they had a plan. They had a plan, and what they wanted us to do was to fall into their plan. But unfortunately, we didn't, because of the objections that we raised at the initial time.
Let me quickly bring in our correspondent, Dr. Akiode, who was also observing the entire proceedings. Sagir, if you're still there, can you speak to the orderliness of that hearing? And whether, from start till when it ended, there was some form of procedural following, so to speak, of that meeting. Did it start on a raucous note and ended on a raucous note? Did it look like that entire committee had a grip of what they were doing?
Thank you, Adisha, for that question. It initially was rowdy indeed, and I must say that it ended up, the committee hearing ended quite abruptly, especially because the petitioners were still hitting on their case, which is, we'll not be able to continue with this matter until you have addressed the issues. One, which is the chairman of the committee has to recuse himself because of statements that, he has made. Second, we need a reconstitution of this panel because we're not sure if the persons who are sitting right before us are going to deliver us the fair hearing that we so demanded. At some point, of course, there were interventions from some lawmakers, including Senator Patrick Nwebonyi, who had also cautioned the petitioners to, express or exercise calm, if you would say. He brought it to the attention of the petitioners that, yes, indeed, there were indeed processes, and especially at the Senate and in a Senate hearing, the Senate rule book takes precedence. Well, he did that as much as he could, but I would say, unfortunately, he didn't do so much to assuage the tensions, of course, that were very, very evident on the floor of the hearing. And this was simply because it didn't seem like the lawmakers who were in charge or who were who were in charge of the investigation, as the case may be, seemed to be listening, to the petitioners. So unfortunately, at some point it seemed calm, but it didn't really end on a calm note.
Thank you so much, Sagir. Let me come back to you, Dr. Akiode. Now that the matter has been adjourned indefinitely, where does that leave this case?
That was not adjourned indefinitely, so let's make that point.
All right, that's what's being reported, that they adjourned it indefinitely. That's what we're hearing.
No. That wasn't what happened. What happened was that while we're making those arguments, and we said this is the condition upon which you can proceed. So they came up with the court processes, which was filed by the wife of Senator Akpabio on defamation, against Senator Natasha. And they told us that it's sub judice and that they don't also think that. And they asked Senator Akpabio's counsel to address the House, which he did by saying that those matters were before the court. So indirectly, what we're saying is that the matter that we were seated to hear today were already before the court. And so the committee does not have the power, to continue with that matter. That was how it ended. They didn't adjourn. It was not an adjournment. And we agreed with them. If they feel that the court will do better, because what this had then proven is that Senator Natasha has done all the administrative things that she needed to do. She has done all the internal domestic. So if they said we should go to court, yeah, then that's a better way, to resolve the matter. At least we'll be before a judge that is fair and proper. So that was what happened. They didn't adjourn the matter.
Right.
The matter was closed by the honorable. That was the impression we got.
Dr. Akiode, in fact, I'm looking at the cable now. The cable is reporting that the case was closed. We looked at the Latin word that they reportedly said the Senate used. It also sounded like it was adjourned indefinitely. But of course, the argument of the court, the fact Imaseun insists that this matter is already in court, so they're going to stay off it. Clearly, we don't know what's going to happen next. We're going to have to keep an eye on it. And I just want to quickly say here that News Central reached out to Senate President's lawyer, Monday Ubani, but somehow we couldn't get him on the show tonight to come and give us their own account of what transpired on the floor today. You insist that Senator Natasha has video and documentary evidence of everything that transpired, and in that petition, Ubani insists that no such thing exists. So we're going to have to keep an eye on this. This case is not going anywhere soon, but I would like to thank both of you for coming tonight to tell us what you know. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.